The early 1920s in Osage County, Oklahoma. A unique and tragic period in American history unfolds. At this time, the Osage people were one of the wealthiest groups in the world, but with wealth came danger. Between 1921 and 1925, dozens of Osage Native Americans were systematically murdered in cold blood. This would later be called the Reign of Terror. To understand the Osage Murders, we need to go back to the roots of the Osage Nation and explore how they became wealthy. In the 1800s, the Osage people were forcibly removed from their land in Kansas and relocated to a rocky, unproductive area in Oklahoma. What seemed like a curse would later turn into a blessing. Beneath this barren land lay rich oil reserves that would forever change their fate. The oil boom and Osage wealth. In the early 1900s, vast oil reserves were discovered beneath Osage land, sparking one of the largest oil booms in American history. The Osage Nation, unique in having retained the mineral rights to their land, benefited enormously from this discovery. In 1906, the U.S. Congress enacted the Osage Allotment Act, which divided the land among individual Osage members. Alongside this, Congress established head rights, which granted each Osage member a share of the revenue from oil extracted from their land. This system guaranteed that each Osage family received a significant portion of the oil profits, quickly transforming the Osage into one of the wealthiest groups in America. By the 1920s, the Osage had become some of the richest individuals in the United States, often displaying their newfound wealth through fine clothing, automobiles, and grand homes. This unprecedented prosperity, however, attracted the attention of outsiders. For many, Osage wealth became a symbol of what they desired and resented. The Osage's affluence brought them a new lifestyle, but also cast a shadow of envy, prejudice, and hostility over their success. As a result, their fortune made them targets, vulnerable to greed, and, eventually, a wave of violence aimed at stripping them of their rights and wealth. The murders begin. The Osage Murders officially began with the death of Anna Brown, a young Osage woman, in 1921. Her body was found in a ravine with a bullet wound to her head. Despite the suspicious nature of her death, her murder was dismissed by local authorities as an accident or suicide. However, Anna Brown's death was only the beginning. Soon, more Osage members began to die under mysterious circumstances. Some were shot, others were poisoned, and some even disappeared without a trace. Over the span of a few years, dozens of Osage members would meet violent deaths. These murders created an atmosphere of fear and paranoia among the Osage people, who began to believe that a sinister conspiracy was at work: the guardianship system and exploitation. The murders were made even more complex by the guardianship system imposed by the U.S. government. Under this system, any Osage who was deemed incompetent by the government, regardless of age or capability, was assigned a guardian, usually a white man. These guardians had control over the financial affairs of the Osage individuals, including their oil royalties. This system of forced guardianship opened the door to widespread fraud, exploitation, and theft. Some guardians spent their wards' money extravagantly, using it to fund their own lifestyles. In cases where an Osage person was murdered, their head rights passed to their next of kin, sometimes the very individuals responsible for the killings. This created a perverse incentive for murder, as each death meant more wealth for those involved in the scheme. A conspiracy uncovered: the role of William Hale. One of the most notorious figures associated with the Osage Murders was William Hale, a wealthy cattleman known as the King of the Osage Hills. He was highly respected in the community and had cultivated close ties with the Osage people. Behind his respectable facade, however, Hale was orchestrating a dark conspiracy to acquire Osage wealth. Hale manipulated his own family members, including his nephew Ernest Burkhart, who had married an Osage woman named Molly. His plan was to systematically eliminate members of Molly's family to inherit their wealth. One by one, Molly's family members were killed, leaving her alone with the family's head rights, which Hale intended to seize through his nephew. He, FBI, steps in. By 1923, with the local authorities either unable or unwilling to solve the murders, the Osage leaders sought help from the federal government. This case caught the attention of a young J. Edgar Hoover, then the head of the Bureau of Investigation, which would later become the FBI. Determined to showcase the agency's abilities, Hoover assigned a former Texas Ranger, Tom White, to lead the investigation. Tom White and his team of undercover agents began to uncover the dark depths of the conspiracy. Through interviews, evidence collection, and undercover work, they gathered proof linking Hale and his associates to the murders. White's team revealed that Hale had masterminded the killings of Osage members, justice, and the aftermath. In 1926, William Hale, his nephew Ernest Burkhart, and other accomplices were arrested and tried for the murders. The trials received widespread media coverage, shocking the nation with the depth of greed and racism that had fueled the killings. Ultimately, Hale, Burkhart, and others involved were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, but the damage done to the Osage Nation was irreparable. Though justice was served to some extent, the Osage Nation had lost many members, and families were forever scarred. The murders and the loss of loved ones cast a long shadow over the Osage people, and the exploitation of their wealth by outsiders left a lasting legacy of distrust and sorrow. Legacy and reflection. The Osage Murders serve as a haunting reminder of a time when wealth brought tragedy to an entire community. The story of the Osage people's exploitation and betrayal by those they trusted is a dark chapter in American history, underscoring the devastating effects of greed, racism, and systemic injustice. Today, the Osage Nation continues to honor the memory of those who lost their lives. They remain vigilant in protecting their resources and cultural heritage, determined never to let such a tragedy happen again. The legacy of the Osage Murders reminds us of the resilience of the Osage people, reflection on the importance of justice and vigilance. The story of the Osage Nation is one of resilience and strength, highlighting the importance of justice and vigilance. Faced with overwhelming adversity, the Osage people not only survived, but continue to thrive, holding firm to their heritage despite efforts to tear it apart. The Osage Murders represent a dark chapter in history, marked by loss, not only of wealth, but of lives and family bonds, compounded by a deep betrayal by those who sought to profit from their suffering. This tragic episode serves as a powerful reminder of why justice is essential to protect communities from the dangers posed by unchecked power and prejudice. By learning from their experiences, we honor the Osage Nation's legacy and uphold a commitment to justice, equality. Let us know in the comments what you think about Osage Murders. If you found this story captivating, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime content.